Joined now in the studio by former UKIP leader Henry Bolton, OBE. Henry, we obsess with small boats, rightly so. A lot of people are very concerned because something tangible, something we can see, something that's so blatantly unfair. But actually, today's figures, the legal migration through the front door, so to speak, that's the real issue. Mind-boggling numbers, 672,000. And the big leap out story for me, Henry, don't know if you concur, is the student visas. It's absolutely out of control.
Record figures on students and on student dependents. Now, for the life of me, I cannot see the justification as to why a student who comes to this country needs to bring a family member with them. That's exploiting the system. And we've got to surely look at what is driving this, because I have more than a suspicion that, we've had this explosion over the last years, 15 years or so, of universities, and they are feeding off this immigration. They are making it's a commercial enterprise. This isn't about educating the British people. This is about businesses in the form of universities sponsoring people to come over as students and their dependents. And of course, then it's government policy that is allowing them to remain, both the dependents and the students, in many cases, beyond the period of study. So this is a money spinner, this is a money maker. And also, if you look at care homes and care staff, because that's a large proportion of the low-skilled workers who are coming across, well, why are we not, as a nation, paying our care home staff sufficient salaries in sufficiently good conditions, as you would expect in any other area of work, to be able to attract British staff?
Yes.
And the agency staff coming in that are being brought in through the immigration system on low-skilled visas are in fact very rarely trained in how to do the medication, how to look after and care for these people. And, again, it is a money-making machine for these agencies. So, and if I may, Martin, before you come up with another point, on the numbers, because I hear so often, these people, they contribute to society. Well, first of all, the ONS has now put the kibosh on that idea. But even if that's the case, these numbers over the last 2 years total slightly more than twice the size of the city of Bristol. Bristol has 65 GP surgeries, 6 hospitals, 4 specialist clinics, 13 police stations, 141 care homes, 132 primary schools and 50 secondary schools. Now, we need double in the period of time, in the last 24 months. We should to have matched the infrastructure to the increase in people. We should have built twice of all of that, trained the staff for 282 care homes and so on, for 100 secondary schools.
Yep.
Of course, that's impossible. This, quite simply, is not sustainable, and it's been allowed by a Conservative government that stood on a manifesto of reducing net immigration. The British people have been lied to by a party that, quite frankly, is now centrist rather than Conservative.
Now, in defence of those coming over on student visas, that they would say that they pay a lot of money to come here because, of course, they pay a premium in terms of the tuition fees versus a British student. And historically, the debate went, they come here, they learn, they get a job, and they pay tax and they contribute. And that's great, and everyone can agree that's a good thing. But one alarming figure that's leapt out today, Henry, is that the number of people who go home after completing a course has plummeted. So historically, it was 61% in 2019 went back to their host country, the biggest net countries coming in being Nigeria and India. But now it's plummeted down. 65% remain here.
Yep.
So there's a concern of overstay, and if they're trained, if they're well educated, if they're paying tax, no problem. But with their dependents, 96,000, we have a huge issue here.
We do, and we've got the infrastructure issues, we've got the policy issues, we've got the cultural issues, because there is no programme of integrating people from elsewhere. The EU nationals that figure's gone down, but now we're looking at people from other parts of the world, and which we expected after Brexit. We did expect there to be a shift in that balance with fewer EU nationals, but there is no effort to integrate these people into our society. So not only are you challenging the infrastructure, not only are you challenging the sheer efficacy of the commercial sort of skewing that this does in care work and education and so on, but you're also challenging the society's ability to deal with that change.
Can I interject? What would you say to people who said, well, we need people, we need 322,000 people on skilled labour visas because Brits simply don't want to do the work. They don't want to be care workers. They don't want to be nurses. They don't want to do those low-paid jobs. Therefore, we need them. That's what defendants of this would say. What's your response to that?
Twofold, Martin. One is, in most countries in the world, if you study to be a nurse, for example, you do not need to pay for it. Your state will pay for it. So, for example, if you come from the Philippines, the Philippine state will, the state of the Philippines will pay for your training. But here, you have to pay. So you end up with a student loan. And so we've got to address how we train these people, point one. But point two is, and we touched on this already, it is a money-making machine for the agencies that bring people across. So a care worker, a care agency, for example, would be paid more per hour per person that it provides than they will pay than a British care worker gets, or that they will pass on to their agency worker. So, and therefore, you can see that agency is making money. And yet we've got a government that is prepared to, if you like, fund that through county councils and so on, indirectly, rather than invest that money in providing the conditions and the salaries for British staff to do those jobs.
So what can be done about all of this? I mean, we seem to have this conversation every year. It seems to be
frustrating.
Seems to be going in the wrong direction, and that is upwards for many people. What can we do? We have this conversation every year. It's like a broken record.
It is. Look, Martin, I have to believe, and I do believe, that this is a matter of will and ability. Either the government doesn't care, or the government doesn't have the ability to manage the process and drive the machinery of government to do what it wants.
Okay.
And either way, we're as a country seriously in a bad place. And Labour won't be any better either.
Okay.
We've got a problem with our political class.
Henry Bolton, OBE, thank you very much for joining us on this topic.